Well, a few things I've learned about transit vans after I got it. And one of them is this faulty gutter system for this giant windshield. So all the water from the top of the van runs forward, hits this windshield, comes down, and this gutter leaks like crazy. You can see it's dripping on the wiring down there, which I put some aluminum tape on. It's dripping on the computer. That's the main computer for the van. It's dripping on the air filter. And yeah. So over the years, they changed some stuff. This air filter used to go in from the top into the bottom so that water would just hit it and roll and fill up the the air filter with water. Luckily, mine was the newer model where the top goes over the bottom, so kind of like a shingle effect. And so I'm assuming that fixed it. Another issue was this orange antenna wire right there. Water would hit that and run straight inside. So they ended up putting that big gasket through that I actually removed. I didn't know. But I guess that didn't really help. So people ended up pulling it down like I did, creating a drip loop so the water won't go back up. So I added that tie wrap to form a drip loop. These little gutters here were added. So water is supposed to hit this, go into here, and then run out the side, and then create this mess on the tire, which you see there. This side didn't have one. It just had a hole here. And I don't think it was a omission. It just wasn't designed that way with it. I think that was an added on thing. I added this heater hose to the downspout, if you will, and brought it down through the engine, and it's coming out here, down here. So it's leaking water, diverting the water away from just pouring in, because that's a big main wiring harness. I just put that tape over, and then this is the ECU there. This, I added tape here. It's not really doing anything. It's kind of falling apart, but these are just little junctions that had little pieces of rubber in there that never sealed. Another issue is this grommet here. That was there on the passenger side, but on the driver's side, there was no grommet. I added this myself on the driver's one. And so that was just a hole. You could see right through to the engine, right under that wiring harness. So water just poured in. I added this trim here because it seems like as over time, this is just kind of glued in place. And I think it just doesn't do a good job. It probably separates as you drive, and thermal expansion and stuff over time. I added all of this based on some video I saw, just some silicone and some rubber, because this channel comes in with water and it just goes straight even underneath this stuff and goes straight into the engine. It's just horrible, horrible, horrible. So I added this, and I don't think it's really helping. It just makes it look ugly. Yeah. So those are the concerns with that, but there's another big concern is water getting in on top of the motor, and it gets into these injectors and stuff. Like you can see that one's already a little rusty. And this is an EcoBoost 3.5 EcoBoost 2020 Transit. So you can see water dripping. That's dripping like No, it's just dripping from here, from this. But so what people have done is they have retrofitted a engine cover from the F-150s. Okay, so this is a F-150 EcoBoost 3.5 liter V6. And I guess this was an option. I'm not a truck guy. I don't know if there's an option or came on them, but you know, it's just an engine cover. So what people have been doing is they've been buying these for their transits. So it was like pre-2016, something like that, F-150s, and modifying them to cover the engine so that if water does leak through, which it will, it'll at least stay off your main parts and have your engine like fail on you. I'm seeing lots of stories about that. So I got this off of eBay. I made some preliminary cuts because since Ford wasn't having this available, they started routing hoses and things. So I had to cut this with my Dremel and cut this and clear some of that stuff. So this is a used one. It snaps into a bracket on the back of the engine, and it pops down on a couple things, and an oil filter, oil fill extension. So a couple things you need to add this is this is the metal bracket here. That's going to go on the engine like that, and there are the three holes on the engine to accept those bolts are there. I think it's an M6 bolt, and then that hinge on the back pops into this top part of this bracket. They did use the holes for other things on the engine, so I'll have to figure out how to relocate those or support those somehow. And then you have the oil filter extension. That'll bring the oil fill up to this part, and then there's a bushing that goes on the engine. So look at the engine real quick. All right, so we're looking at the top of my 3.5 EcoBoost. Here is the center bolt hole where that M6 bolt's gonna go for that bracket. This over here where this hose is going in, which I think is a fuel line, it's just a push fit, and they're using one of the holes I need for the bracket. And then the same over here. This is pushed in. So I'm gonna have to pull those out to get that bracket in, and then might have to trim more of this or whatever to get that thing in there. And then here's the extension. Here's where I'm gonna have to put that little extender on. So it's too bad that they don't fix this drain issue or keep the cover on or something. But apparently if you run the van every day, it should burn the water off that hits it. That's the philosophy. But I don't know. Bad design. Anyway, I'll get started. Okay, it's installed. Probably took me a couple hours. I'm pretty picky. Wanted to make sure some of these lines weren't obstructed, so I had to do some more cuts over here, and then I added some loom on that. I think it's a brake line. This is nice. Just even raising that up is kind of nice. So I added a piece here, even though it really wasn't touching, but it'll probably vibrate. I don't know. Seems important, whatever that is. So it's held on with the back bracket. There's two hooks going into that bracket, and then this side is being held on with this. Pretty secure. And then underneath here was a pin that was already in the engine, and it went up into the little rubber receiver that's built into the cover. And then there was that bushing that I showed you before that went on here to keep it stable. So it's on there pretty good. I'm rather like it. So I think with all the precautions, I ended up trimming this a little bit. I did these first trims based on internet pictures. Probably should have waited because mine didn't line up as much there. And then I trimmed this just because I saw it when I was doing the test fitting. So anyway, I like it. Too bad you had to do it though. It's like they know this design of this gutter system is atrocious. I still might want to do some more. I don't really like my aluminum tape covering the wires down there. But you know, Ford quality. All right. Anyway, happy with the way that turned out. Okay, here we are back in the Transit, and here's another design deficiency, as I would call it. This van has an auto start stop. So when you come up to a stop sign, stop light, the engine will shut off. And then when you take your foot off the brake, the engine will start pretty quickly to go again. Now, these are supposedly built so that the transmission, or excuse me, the starter, you know, will last up to 100,000 miles and it doesn't do any extra wear and tear on the batteries or the starting system. I don't believe any of that because when I bought this, the Carfax already showed in the first 50,000 miles that the starter was already replaced once. And you know, how much fuel are you actually going to save by doing that? You know, wear and tear on mechanical stuff. So I don't like it. I don't like it. So let me show you that there is a way to turn it off that's built into the car. Okay, so you have this button over here, this auto off. Okay, that's all it is auto off. So if you push it, switches to off, and then it says auto start deactivated by switch, which is great. So it won't turn off and on when you're driving. But the problem is it's only for that one session. So if I stop, turn the engine off, run into the store or wherever, come back, start it up again. Look, it's off. So you have to push it every time. And that's no bueno. So it's like, why can't they just have these things remember what your preference is? So some research online, I found this Autostop Eliminator, and it just plug and play goes in line with your OBD2 plug. So you just unplug that, plug it in line, and then this little box here is the brains behind it, and it doesn't keep it from working. It just keeps it remembering your preference. So I think what's going to happen is this is just going to remember where that button was, but each time it starts, it's going to actually electronically push the button for you. So I'll see that little display saying it was pushed. So I'm going to plug it in and we'll look at it together. All right, just a couple of minutes. You reach down behind the OBD2 connector. The release is on the bottom, so it comes unplugged pretty easy. And then you just plug this one in line. You can even look at the part that came to see how it unplugs and plugs in. But then you just tie the little dongle up there, the little electronics piece with a tie wrap. Anyway, I haven't tried it, so let's go ahead and start the van and see if it remembers. Okay, let's give this a try. Got the engine running. The auto start is turned on. So I'm going to turn it off. Now it says here, deactivated by switch. I turn the engine off, and it would normally come back and be back on, and I have to push the button every time. So let's see. Okay, out. Oh, still off. Oh, and then look. And it's still off. That's how I had it. So it's working. Very cool. So if I wanted to use it, which I don't, you could still use it. Because if I turn this off, it'll do that. And it'll be on. If I turn it off, so we'll try it one more time. So it's off, which is where I'm going to leave it so the engine won't turn off when I'm driving stoplights. Keys out. Yep, auto start deactivated. So it works. Very cool. So it's called Autostop Eliminator, and they do make it for different models of vehicles. Even this 2020 Transit 350 versus 250 or something. So autostopeliminator.com. It was $100, but it beats having to remember to push that button all the time, because I don't want to mess with the starter turning on and off, on and off, on and off when I'm driving. It also makes if it's like in the summertime, like you have the air conditioner, you know how you have to have the engine run for your air conditioner. So all the fans speeds turn way low when it turns off. And of course your RPM drops to 0. And then it starts back up, and then that starts your air conditioning up again. It just seems like it's more wear and tear. Even though they say it's designed to handle it, I don't care. For as much gas as you're going to save, and I'm sure these starters aren't cheap for this giant thing. Plus wear and tear on the batteries. This has 2 AGM batteries, and it would be having to use that to start, every time if you're in stop and go traffic. No, forget it. Anyway, I like this upgrade. So